All right, we are live. What's going on, everyone? So I am super excited for this interview. For you guys that don't know him, Cyrus Janssen is a YouTube influencer, Instagram influencer, man of multiple expertise and
Mhm.
talents, and has also become a friend of mine over the last couple of years now. So just quick background. Cyrus can probably tell us a lot better than I can, but he was in golf in China, became fluent in Chinese, and came back to Vancouver, continued to work in golf and working with some junior golfers, which we're going to dig into a little bit as well. And then just overall the kind of like golf atmosphere. He's doing some awesome stuff right now with Ghost Golf. But anyway, thanks so much for coming on.
Connor, thanks for the great introduction. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I'm looking forward to today's podcast.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I think it would make the most sense to kind of start off with this of just like how did you get into golf? How did you move into like golf instruction, going to China? Just like fill people in on kind of like that background because it's a
Yeah,
really cool story.
absolutely. No worries. Kind of my background is I'm originally from Florida. I went to Florida State University, graduated from their professional golf management program, and became a PGA professional and having a 4-year business degree. Now, at the time, I was very interested in going more into the management side, really, learning to be a GM of a golf course. But at the time, there was a very interesting opportunity that happened, and that was there was a job at the David Ledbetter Golf Academy in Shanghai, China. Now, China really interests me. This was around 2006. So, you got to rewind the clocks here. 2006, China's really emerging. It is really, the Chinese economy is booming. And there's an opportunity to go and be a golf coach in Shanghai. Now, full transparency, I wasn't actually really that interested in coaching golf. I didn't really like the instruction side of it. Again, I was more interested in being a GM, kind of the private club industry is what I really enjoyed. But China really intrigued me. And so I said, you know what? I can coach golf if it involves China. And, I would love to go to China, learn Chinese. I think that'd be a great skill set for me to have in the future. So I interviewed for the job, and it was a really fun interview. It was literally 5 minutes long, and kind of came down to one question, do you have a good attitude? Are you willing to come? Are you willing to learn? Are you willing to work hard? And it's like, yeah, I can do all those. I'm a young kid. I'm really ready to kind of grind and hustle. So I went to China. I just fell in love with China, was learning Chinese. And because of that, I was, golf instruction was my vehicle. So, I started doing it, and I wasn't very good at the beginning, but I really started falling in love with golf instruction, and actually, was doing that full time. And that's really how I kind of honed my skills as a golf coach. And then, of course, adding another skill of learning to coach in Chinese, so within about a year of being there, I was able to give a basic golf lesson, in Mandarin, and then also learning a lot more about giving golf lessons in general, and then also learning the David Ledbetter golf system. Ledbetter really is kind of the pioneer in modern day golf instruction. He's one that's really kind of took it from a coach sitting on the range giving lessons to really building an academy and really building a product. And certainly his pedigree of just amazing world number ones and talent that he's worked with over the years. He's also based at Championsgate, which is in Orlando, which is my hometown, Orlando, Florida. So there's always that kind of connection back to David Ledbetter. But yeah, so that was really my first introduction there. And really being in China, a big market is junior golf. You've got really kind of two markets there. You've got kind of middle-aged men that have started to make some money, and they're like, hey, I've got some money and some free time. I want to learn to play golf for business. And then the other market is really juniors. So those are really your two markets in China. And junior golf was just booming. It was amazing to be kind of 2007 to 2013. This was really like the booming period of China's economy, but also the golf economy. I mean, golf was just on fire. Golf courses were being built. When the 2008 financial crisis came, golf courses weren't being built in North America or Europe, but all of the golf course architects were coming to China and building incredible golf courses. So China was really a really hot market, and that was really just a huge blessing to be there at that time. I mean, it was really the golden age of being an expat in China and also working in the golf industry in China.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's interesting. And we haven't really like discussed the junior golf side of this stuff in depth. But I think back to some of the like first players that we started to see like get in like qualify for like the Masters from like the I forget what it was. It was like the Asia Amateur Pacific or something like that, Pacific
Yeah,
Amateur, something like that.
exactly.
What was that like? Did you see that was like going to happen in real time? Were you like around any of those kids, or like what was that experience like, kind of
Yeah.
being
Oh,
in that as
absolutely.
it was coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. So the nice thing was I was after 2 years at the Ledbetter Academy, I went over to Shushan International, which is the number one private club in China that had hosted the WGC HSBC Champions. So WGC event for many years, one of the premier golf tournaments, certainly the premier in Asia, but one of the best on the PGA Tour as well. And every November we held that tournament, and we invited, we always had the top 20 players in the world coming out. So Tiger, Phil, Sergio, Rory. I mean, everybody was coming to Shanghai every November to play in that tournament. And then in addition to that, the Chinese Golf Association, they would get 5 sponsors exemptions to get the local Chinese kids in order to play, that tournament. And this would be your best, Chinese professionals would get those spots. So one of the kids that really stood out was a kid by the name of Li Haotong, who's probably been one of the more successful Chinese golfers. I think, he went on the China tour. I think he won 4 tournaments in about a 6-week span. I mean, he got really hot, by winning those tournaments. He then got his status on, I think, on the European tour. Ended up winning a couple times on the European tour. He took down Rory McIlroy at the Dubai Desert Classic one year. Kind of came down to like the 72nd hole, and he made a birdie to win and beat Rory by 1. But I mean, he's had a, really great, career. He's kind of not playing the best at the moment, but I mean, he had a very good stretch there, really being the most outstanding Chinese golfer. And there's always a lot of talent there, Connor. It was really interesting to see. But the dynamic of being in China is golf is not as accessible. And really for the juniors, it's the school system is very, very complex, and it's much more strenuous. Kids are kind of going to school 8 to 5 Monday to Friday. So they're not getting out of school at 2 and being able to go and play 9 holes or practice. They're very limited. So they're kind of can maybe go to the range for an hour in the evening, and then kind of weekends they're trying to play as much as they can. So it's a kind of a very different dynamic coaching wise, because in the US, we have, a lot more opportunities for juniors to play more often. And the courses are much more accessible and much more tournaments, things like that.
No, that's interesting you mentioned that, because it's an interesting duality, because I don't think anyone could deny the quality of golfers that are coming out of China and Asia more broadly, and like I think it's fair to say it's like they have a lot more limitations than we do here in America. But
Right.
it's also interesting that like there are people who have everything presented to them and they do nothing with it. And then there are people
Exactly.
who have access to like almost nothing and they just squeeze every last bit of it out. And I think that's an important thing to kind of like highlight to any parents of junior golfers that might be watching this. Is it's like it's not so much about what you have, it's about what you make out of what you have and your attitude toward it. Because I mean, I can't tell you how many parents I talk to where they're like, yeah, my kid's undersized. Like, we just can't compete. Like, I'm not even going to do tournaments. I'm just like, that's such a bad thought process. Like,
Totally.
put your kid out there, go out there, compete, do their best. Like, don't make whether or not they win the tournament the end result. Like, actually, just like make the most out of what you have rather than looking at what you don't have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll kind of comment on that as well, because as you know, I'm from Florida. So Florida
Right.
365, sunshine. I mean, we can play golf all the time. The interesting thing that you see is, we see a lot of other states in the US. For example, I worked in Massachusetts, so cold weather place, very limited golf season. But you don't see this correlation that like, oh, all the golfers in Florida are so much better than golfers in Massachusetts. No, actually, to be honest, like we're kind of lazy in Florida, because if the weather's bad, we're not playing golf. I mean, we're like, you know what,
Right.
we'll just go again tomorrow. Whereas, in Massachusetts, I mean, I remember being there, and it's, March, and okay, there's not snow on the ground. It's 30 degrees, but hey, we can play golf. I mean, no Floridians going out in that, but these guys are grinding it out and seizing every opportunity they have. So all of a sudden it's like, well, Florida golfers, they've got a 12-month season and their handicap is this much. But Massachusetts, they've got a much smaller window, but they're working extra harder and they're just more hungry with what they've got. And that's a great example. And you see that as well. Like I think Michigan has, I mean, some of the most, I think most number of courses. I mean, they're right up there with like behind Florida, California. I think that Michigan's number 3 I think well over 1,000 courses in Michigan, which you kind of think is like ridiculous given their very small golf season, but they love it. And Michigan people are great, and they've got great golf programs. So definitely completely to your statement there.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because now I think about it, I'm like, oh, I work with a couple of Michigan kids, work with a few Canadian kids, and it's interesting, and I think it's also one of those things where it's as you apply constraints, you have two options. You can either be worse or you can be more efficient. Like you
Yeah.
can, and so what's interesting about humans is we're so good at making the most out of like kind of what we have if we were forced to do it.
Right.
Right. So it's like if I let you practice 10 hours a day, you just practice 10 hours a day and you just like do whatever. And like maybe that works out for you. And for some people it does. A lot of people follow the Tiger Woods model, just hit as many golf balls as humanly possible. But
Right.
that's not feasible for most people. It's like even, and they kind of bypass like, well, Tiger had good grades too, and he had to like focus on that when he was a kid.
Right.
And it's like it's not always about how many absolute hours you put in. Sometimes it's about the efficiency of the hours and like how effective you are while you're putting in that time when you're out there. So
Absolutely.
yeah, no, I couldn't agree more about that. So kind of continuing on this story for you. So you started working with these junior golfers out there. I guess, like, what was your experience in that? Like, did you see them going to college? Did they want to go to college in the States? Is there stuff that goes on in China? Let's start
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, so I was what was really nice is being at Shorshan was again really top end private club, and we had a lot of really talented juniors there, and I was really proud to put together kind of the first team to come from China. And what we did, so this was 2013, so just over 10 years ago, we brought a team of about 12 junior golfers from Shanghai, and we brought them to California in the summer, and we had I think about 6 out of the 12 had qualified for the Junior World, which is held in San Diego every year. And then there's also the Future Champions has an event that is, I believe, the week before. So basically, we're like, let's go from China. We're going to go to California for like 3 weeks. We're going to play as many junior tournaments as we can. We're going to play Torrey Pines. We're going to play there. And so we had a lot of, the 6 that had qualified for the Junior World. It was, their first kind of real big tournament. We had one of the girls, I think she was maybe 8 or 9 years old, finished second, lost in a playoff. So she had a very, very good result for that week. And, it was just great to kind of bring this team there. So we had, we got Fila was the sponsor. So all of us had Fila clothing on. We had, we had all golf bags sponsored from Ping. So, I mean, we were like a official team from China really coming in. And, we were just so graciously welcomed by everybody. It was so amazing because, as the Callaway Junior World, I mean, you got kids from all over the world and there in San Diego. I mean, it's an awesome event. And so what was really cool is that, back in 2013, these kids are somewhere between 8 to 10 years old. Fast forward to today, and now all of them are graduating college. So out of that group, we had 2 girls go to Stanford University on college scholarships. One of the girls her Chinese name is Yele. Her English name is Angelina Ye. She actually won the U.S. Junior Amateur, I think U.S. Junior Girls.
Yeah.
So I mean, big USGA tournament. She was, played at Stanford. Now she's just turned professional, went back to China and just won the China Women's Open. So her first professional victory about a month ago. Great talent. I mean, she's just a fantastic talent, and we're going to see her, what she can do in the professional world. A couple other kids, they've, more importantly, because I think that's the key message also for your juniors is not everyone's going to be a tour pro, not everyone's going to go, but we had 2 others went to Yale on a college scholarship. Had four years on the team. Obviously phenomenal golfer, but they get a world-class education, and I think both of them are now going into the finance world. They've got a finance degree, and they're going to do that, but. I mean, what an amazing opportunity. Even if you're not going to pursue professional golf, but now imagine being in New York City, working in finance on Wall Street. But oh, by the way, I played 4 years at Yale, and I'm obviously a scratch golfer. That's going to go a long way in the business world. And so, it was really cool to see them, transition from a 10-year-old in San Diego, being on this China golf team, and then now, wow, you've finished 4 years. And I'll tell you one of the interesting things. I know you used to live in Las Vegas. We met at TPC Summerlin. So one of the kids that I used to coach back in Shanghai, he just turned pro. He's trying to get his Korn Ferry status, and so he's decided that Las Vegas is the place for him. I walk into the gym at TPC Summerlin and I see him and I'm like, his name is Ho Ho. I'm like, Ho Ho, is that you? And he's like, Cyrus, what are you doing here? I'm like, dude, I'm a member here. Like, this is where I go to the gym. And he's like, I just joined 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's great. So we went out for a game of golf and it was so much fun because, I mean, he's trying to go for his Corn Ferry. So I'm not at the same level as him, but it was just fun to see him, compete. And we have a couple we have like 3 guys at the club that are going for the Corn Ferry, status and kind of Q school and all that thing. So I was like, hey, let me introduce you to these other guys and you guys can kind of have a little sparring match. I got to play as the 4th guy, just watching these guys go at it. But it was like, wow, so surreal, to come full circle here. Like I saw this guy as a 10-year-old junior in Shanghai. Now he's based here in Las Vegas, member at TPC and, actively pursuing his professional career and obviously playing at a very high level.
Yeah, that's awesome. I
Yeah.
want to like backtrack just a little bit here because I really want to dig into this one. So you start working with these kids and they're like 10, 8, 10-ish. We've got, one or a couple that went to Stanford, which, obviously stands out as an outlier. Winning the US girls is obviously, I mean, to call that a big tournament is a little bit of an understatement. I mean, it's
Huge.
the tournament that you want to win.
Yeah.
What, just for anyone who's watching, is like, where was their focus at? Like, what was their mindset? Like, what were the things that they worked on? What were the things that maybe you would think that that they didn't work on? Like, what did that look like?
Well, it was really interesting. So I'm going to really focus on Angelina because she, out of the 12 kids, I think she was really the standout. And this was, something I had first met Angelina when she was around 5 years old. And there's actually a really cool clip of her. CNN actually came to China in Shanghai circa 2007. And they were kind of doing a segment on golf in China and how it was booming. And there's a clip of her, on a driving range in Shanghai. And they had said, what's your goal? And she's like, I'm going to go play golf at Stanford. I want to be like Tiger Woods. Now this is 5 years old. And so I would say it's this, when you see like the talent, like all these kids have talent, but when you saw, kind of this X factor with Angelina is this unrelenting, just drive that she had. I mean, she always was working hard on the range. I mean, she was always grinding, but it was kind of this championship mentality from a young age, and that was, maybe you can say that she was born with that, or maybe she cultivated that over the years. Maybe, through all of the coaches that she worked with, maybe we also helped instill that a little bit, but it was this very much determination of, I'm going to do this. And there was never a point where, it's like, Angelina, can you get off your phone? Like, don't text over your friends. Like, you need to hit another few balls. Oh, okay, fine. I mean, there was never that. I mean, you would never have to, she came to the driving range to practice. When she was done practicing, she was done. And so it was just this very disciplined and focused thing where, you saw her hitting balls in the range. She was a little bit different than the other kids. I see a lot of kids today, they'll hit balls, hit 10 balls and all of a sudden they check their cell phone or they're listening to music and I want a different track. I've never, seen her ever, use music on the range. She's there to practice, focus. It's just this determination. And, that was really, you can just kind of see that when you're observing all 12 of them, something's a little bit different about her, other than the others. And it's just little things like that, Connor, that I think really separate the pack here. And that's why she was able to really, achieve the most success out of these 12 juniors. And again, all of them are great, but it's, she's the one that has turned pro and, has already won an official, professional tournament already. And then obviously, like you said, the premier junior event at her time, and then also going to Stanford for 4 years. So all of these, really great accomplishments.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think this is probably makes the most sense to go to next within that is like, I talk to a lot of parents. And one of the things that I notice is like the kids who are the most successful have parents who, to some degree, implicitly support them and they believe in them in a way that, like, a lot of parents who like that have their kid where they're struggling. They're just like, why won't they listen to me? Why won't they do the thing? Why won't they work hard? A lot of the time, there's an underlying doubt that parent has about their child and about the things that their child says that they want to do. They're like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe you want to do that. Maybe you'll be bored with it in the next year. Versus, I work with a 10-year-old right now, and his parents are just like, he wants to be the best player in the world, and like we're going to invest in that, and like that's that, and I believe in him, and I think it's, I'm curious from your perspective, like what was her parents' attitude toward her having those big goals?
Yeah, that's a great question, Connor, and I think you're spot on with the parents. Parents, we play such a vital role, and it's interesting for me now. I have three children, and as a PGA pro, obviously someone that loves the game of golf, I'd love nothing more than my kids to fall in love with the game and pursue that, however they want to do that. My kids are still very young, so we're not quite there yet, but it so much of it comes down to the parents and the right energy that we give, the right things that we say. And I think one of it was, for example, we did have some parents in there that pushed very hard. And actually, we had another boy that I would say was equally as talented as Angelina, but his parents' dynamic were very different. His father was just kind of stereotypical Asian dad, very tough, but just relentless on the kid. It's just far as like, that was a bad swing. Oh, why did you shoot 78? He's like, your putting was terrible, and just negative, negative, negative. And, you saw over the years, and as a golf coach, you have a very tight rope to walk because you're like, hey, this is not the right way to coach your kid. And then it's like, hey, look, I'm paying all the money for the lessons. I'm paying for everything. This is what I'm going to do. And so you try to guide as best as you can. Sometimes the parent's going to overrule you, but ultimately you can see the road that they're going down. And that really led to him getting burned out. At a point, there was a point I remember where he was just so burned out and just uninterested in golf. And it was tough because you're like, man, this kid's so talented. It is there, but there's this pressure from the parent that really created a lot of trouble for him, and I would say really derailed his potential, if I'm being really honest. And so going back to Angelina, you've got an amazing parents that were, again, when she said at 5 years old, I'm going to go to Stanford, that was the goal. That was the mission, and it was always to go to Stanford. She just graduated a couple months ago, and it was so fun for me to see the photo of her parents with her getting that degree, because I'm like, wow, you guys literally manifested this for 15, 20 years. What a great photo. You can imagine the parents are smiling, but I'm like, I know what you guys have been through to get to that photo. This is a
Mhm.
20-year journey, and you have manifested it, you have supported it, and there was never a day where you ever like, well, maybe you don't go to Stanford, honey. Maybe you're not as talented to get to Stanford. It's just like
Mhm.
Stanford's the goal. Like, you're going to Stanford. And you're coming from Shanghai. That's a tough job, to get from Shanghai to get recruited to go to Stanford. But it's like,
Yeah.
you know what? They made it happen, and they really, it's just, they worked hard. And there was a time where I think her father was, you could maybe say like pushing a little bit too hard, but it was just finding that balance of, letting her, you know, um, also blossom. And it's tough, right? Kids are developing, they're becoming their own people. They're, going through teenage years, which is tough. And so, I would give a lot of credit to her parents. They did a very good job of, kind of a tough love, but always giving her, the support that she needed. And, the proof's in the pudding. You can see the results.
Yeah, no, that's interesting you put it that way because it's an interesting like duality because I see there's kind of like two extremes, I see parents who are kind of like um aloof and just like kind of like, yeah, that's nice, honey. And then I see parents that are like over like all in, like they're critiquing their child. And it's kind of like, okay, well, where's the balance? Right. And then, I see the parents I've seen the most successful are the ones who are like there as support, like they're in it with their child. They're not like armchair quarterbacking because a lot of the
Yeah.
times the ones who are like not engaged, when you go out there and shoot 99, they're like, holy crap, what happened? Da 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 da. Da. They're not
Yeah.
like, all right, cool. Like, it's, keep on keeping on. So, but at the same time, they're not like, well, why'd you do this? Why'd you do this? Why'd you do this? But one of the things I think it's important to stress to parents who are kind of like trying to find that balance is like giving giving your child the opportunity to fail. I think is a lot more important than ensuring that they like succeed, because it's like we can
Yeah.
go behind our kid, like make sure they don't fall over, but it's like, what do they learn from that? They learn if even if I kind of like tip, like dad's gonna like fix it for me, versus, and then they don't learn how to do that stuff intrinsically, versus if they fall over, number one, they can learn how to not fall over. Number two, if you
Yeah.
ever do come in there and help them, maybe they actually come to you and say, hey, I actually need help, I keep falling over, it kind of sucks, what should I
Yeah.
do? But it also just gives them the opportunity to like work through that. Like they get the feedback loop so much faster versus if you're always like telling them what they did wrong, so they don't get to figure that out on their own and you don't
Yeah.
accomplish the end goal of helping them get better.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah,
Okay.
I got a quick story on that because
Yeah.
just to kind of get to highlight. So remember, I told you we had a girl that finished second in the junior world at her age group. I think she was 8 or 9 years old, and it was a very interesting thing because so she came down. She basically tied. They went to a playoff down in the first playoff hole. Both juniors hit a great drive, and they have a wedge approach in. Now, our girl, she went first, and the pin was a sucker pin. It was, front left, water in front. I mean, it's a pin that you really don't want to take on. And she went for it, so she's like, I'm just going to go for this. So she hit this great wedge shot. It basically hit maybe 1 foot short of her target, spun back right into the water, and then she hit it in the water. The other player hits it on the green. She makes a bogey. They make a par, playoff over. She loses. And what happened is her, right afterwards, her dad just berated her. How could you hit it in the water? Why did you hit it in the water? Why wouldn't you hit it to the front of the green? And she was just, it's an 8-year-old, 9-year-old girl. She was just couldn't really process what was happening, right? I mean, she just obviously she was sad. She just lost the tournament. And then, and so I was stepping in and I just said, let's learn from this because, this is an amazing opportunity to learn. And I just said, like, what was going through your mind? What like, let's just break it down. And she's like, well, I just, it was 100 yards and I hit my wedge 100 yards. Like I'm really comfortable with a 100-yard shot. I just thought, why not? Like, let's just go for it. And so, and she's like, I hit a good shot. I just came up a little bit short. And so I'm like, that's great. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And I said, the thing is that, and I just said, I gave him some perspective. I said, hey, look, we just flew over from China. If I would have told you at the start of the week that your daughter would finish second, you would have been elated, right? You would have been so happy. You would have been like, oh my gosh, that is the best. That is incredible. Like second place in the Callaway Junior World. I mean, fantastic. But only because of the situation. Now you're mad. Now you're mad because you're like, you should have won that tournament. But at the end of the day, she's 8 years old. Like, even if you win or you finish second, this is one tournament in the series of where we're going. And this is an amazing opportunity because I guarantee you the next time that you're in this spot, because of this failure, you're going to realize that, hey, this is not the time to go after that pin. You know what? Like, why don't we hit it to the center of the green, give myself 15 to 20 feet, give myself a chance to make a putt. And let me just go make a putt and and go win it that way. Only obviously if maybe if the opponent had hit it to 2 feet, okay, well, now we're going to have to go for that pin and we're going to just be more aggressive. So again, this is a great opportunity. I'm so proud of you. Like, you are going to learn and learn so much from this. Give you a hug. Like, you guys second place. Awesome job. And so that was just a delivery, that was a great example of, how parents can overstep and it was really damaging. You can imagine, just getting berated by your dad at 9 years old when you just finished second, and it was, I mean, and by far, I mean, it was the best result out of all 12 girls or all 12, juniors that we brought. But again, really perspective. I really want to hammer that home for parents. You would play such a vital role in the development of your child.
Yeah, no doubt. That's an interesting point because that just specifically even going over like that type of a scenario. With when you look at a girl like Angelina, right? The one that went to Stanford.
Mhm.
When you look at a girl like her and maybe some of the other players that you saw, how much of it was a difference in her ability to, like, let's say, put a club on a golf ball, and how much of it was her ability to make intelligent decisions on the golf course and kind of manage her emotions throughout there? Like, how much was like just what we would kind of see on the driving range is like just innate like ability, and how much was just kind of like her ability to like manage herself through the golf course?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think all of the kids are talented, right? So they all can hit it well. And then, some kids were a little bit more talented than others as far as their pure ball striking ability. Like, wow, this kid's a talent. They're just a pure ball striker. But I think, as you're progressing, and certainly at a point with like Angelina when she's 12, 13, I mean, her game's dialed. I mean, she's got a great golf swing. She knows how to hit it. She's got all the shots in the bag. It really is just goes into course management. And so kind of at that point, we really, we were doing more coach training. And so we really, we're trying to get these kids on the golf course more, because that's certainly the issue in China, is that typically you're spending a lot more time on the range and as opposed to getting on the golf course. And that was the thing where we had to work with our golf course, because we're like, hey, we need to get these kids on the golf course and they need to be carrying their own bags. And in China, it's caddy everywhere, mandatory caddy every golf course. So that was a big thing. They're like, well, no, they have to take a caddy. I'm like, so I had to go to the GM and I had to like sit them down. I'm like, well, this is the problem. They're going to go to California, play in the tournament. Like, they got to carry their own bag. They got to fill their own divots. They got to repair their ball marks. They've never done that. Their pace of play is going to be horrible. Now they're going to be in a tournament situation. This is going to be, this is going to be very stressful for them. And we can't have, a great player perform badly because they've fallen out of pace because they don't know how to rake a bunker. So, we had to like really work with the golf course to get access and say like, no, we need these juniors on the course by themselves, no caddy, and then really be able to train them to also make these intelligent decisions. Like, okay, you've got a 180-yard carry over water. What is the probability that you're going to do that? What's the risk reward? Is that the right choice that you can do? Yes, you can pull that shot off, but maybe 1 out of 5 times. Or do we want to, maybe we aim a little bit more left, ensure that we hit the safety shot, because your short game is great. You're probably going to get it up and down if you're green side. So as opposed to taking on that pin. So that really, transitioned, once they got to that level, it was all about course management and really being able to make those smart decisions on the golf course, which I would say for juniors from China, that's a big problem because of, like I mentioned, it's mandatory caddies, and can't tell you how many, times, we had to imagine being a scratch golfer at age 12 and you're like, let me show you how to rake your bunker, because you guys don't know how to rake bunkers or fill divots, and you're going to have to do that. And you're going to have to learn how to do that while playing golf and playing tournament golf and keeping up your pace of play. So I remember that was kind of a funny, few weeks there where, you're kind of starting at the beginning with these advanced juniors, and like, this is how you rake a bunker, but they needed to learn that.
Gentlemen, this is a football. Yeah. No, that's awesome that you bring that up. I think that's a great point, because I see that a lot. And I think that that's true in the States and just in general. And like golf is like, junior golfers spend so much time on the driving range. And I think that there's kind of this myth that they buy into, that it's like, I'm going to work on my swing. One day it's going to be like so dialed, I'm just going to go out there and shoot 65 all the time. And I feel like half my thing is like yelling at people, being like, that doesn't happen. That never, like, you can be the best ball striker in the world. If you don't putt good, you're not shooting 65. You might shoot ball strike your way to 70 maybe, but like, when you shoot 65, it's because you putted good. So then it's like, well, you're not always going to hit it good. So you still have to be able to shoot those scores. And it's like, a lot of that's like not making any catastrophically dumb mistakes on the golf course. And it's knowing how to handle these like weird lies you get, different situations, uphill, downhill, bunker stuff, like all those other things that can only really be learned on the golf course. And so I think that that's a great point. It's like, you have to spend that time out there in order to learn how to play golf. Like you can't there's so many shots you can't practice on the driving range. So it's just like, you've got a rough estimate on the driving range, but if you don't go out there and validate it on the golf course, you're just not going to learn how to play well enough.
Right.
So I think that's a great point. The other thing I think you kind of mentioned there a little bit that I really want to highlight is like, I talked to a bunch of kids who are just like, I want to be more consistent. Or the parents are just like, well, how come they shoot these scores are all over the place? And I'm like, well, how many rounds of golf do you like play consecutively? Like, how many times do you go out there and play 18 holes and 18 holes in the weekend? You play 36 holes. And it's like, well, we don't. We just play like 5 holes at a time. I'm like, so why is it confusing to you that you go into a 36-hole tournament and you don't play as well as you thought that you would? It's like, you don't even get reps at that like, it's like going out and be like, I'm so good at running 3 miles. Like, why can't I get through this marathon? Be like, you haven't run a like, it's not that you're a bad runner. But what's crazy to me is like, so many coaches will be like, well, like, we just need to work on this running form. And you're just not like quite kicking the right way. And it's just like, no, they don't run.
Totally. Yeah, that's great. Great example. Great example. Yeah, if you're only running 3 miles, you're not running a marathon. And if you're only playing 5 holes, 36-hole tournaments are going to be very difficult. And I want to just compliment what you said there, Connor, because one of the things that was fun with the juniors is, as coaches, when we're coaching the game. I didn't play that much, but for me, what I would always, if I had time to practice, I would go over to the short game area and I would just hit different shots all over the place, just chipping and pitching. And so what was really funny is that, these kids, they're like, we're really, our short games are dialed in. I'm like, okay, let's play a game then. Let's go over to the short game area and, let's do, closest to the pin, from all of these different areas, and, first to 10 wins. And so, I'm like, all right, let's go to the mulch bin over here. And they're like, why are we hitting off the mulch? I'm like, because that's what because I'm getting you out of your comfort zone, and then I'd hit this awesome flop shot to 10 feet. And they're like, I don't even know how to hit the shot. I'm like, exactly. That's what we need to work on, because who knows? One day you might be in the mulch, or you might have this awkward lie. All of these things, let's get you, learning and adapting, because that's what I remember, like hearing Jordan Spieth, being at 10 years old and just spending hours and hours chipping and just working on these games. It's not like I need to hit my 7-iron 100 times in a row. It's like, no, let's just work on all of these different shots. And just that's kind of how I developed my golf game. Actually, it was really short game focused, and just loving to, fell in love with putting and chipping, and just doing that for hours, while I was learning the game of golf, from all different areas, and that's how you hone those skills.
I think kind of what you're touching on there too, because I understand what you're saying, and I have like a completely different experience. And like we played together, like I'm much more of a ball striker. Like that's how I'm gonna interpret the golf course, and that's kind of like what I'm gonna rely on.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because I think what you're actually training there is you're training golf club awareness. Because
Yeah.
if you look at the best players with their short game, it's like I've tried to like really like block practice, and I think I do it as much as I can with like short game. But it's like the best players really don't. Like they're just hitting all sorts of different shots. They're like, what
Totally.
about this one? What about that? Like, and so there's not really one stock. It's like it's very hard to teach a stock standard like chipping method, because it's like, well, what about the different lies and all sorts of stuff? So you have to have kind of
Totally.
an innate awareness of like, if I clip the ball like this, I'm going to get this much spin. If I clip the ball like this,
Correct.
if I want to take the spin off, if I do that. And I think the same thing is true with, the maybe different shot shaping is like, how can I have the face a little bit open? How can I have the face a little bit closed? How can I like bring the flight down a little bit? And it translates a little bit better to the golf course because you've developed that awareness. And a lot of the time it's like, we don't need to hit like the frozen rope shots. We just have to have some concept of where the golf ball is going and kind of hit it solid. You do that all day, like you're going to hit plenty of greens if you have hit good targets.
Exactly.
No, so that's really really cool. So all right, going through we're working with these kids. I guess the other thing I just wanted to like talk to you about real quick is like, I think that there's a general sense from parents and kids where it's like you feel like you can go out there and like rise to the occasion, so to speak. That's one of the things I see a lot, and I think that creates a lot of internal stress.
Yeah.
And so like I'm curious your take on this, is like when I look at even a guy like Tiger, I feel like to some degree Tiger probably underperforms like what he feels like he should. It's
Yeah.
just he got his apex so high that like he had a little bit of like wiggle room. But I always look at him like in the majors, it's like you can say he's clutch. It's like I've seen some of the nerviest things ever from Tiger. I think about like 2008 where he like snap hooks his tee shot, makes double bogey on the first hole hitting into the trees. It's like
Totally.
a lot of the time it's not actually it's a false goal to be like, well, I just want to be not anxious. Like that's not going to happen. Like you have to be okay with being in the anxiety. That's why you have to compete. So you feel it and you're like, oh, I've hit a good shot and felt like I couldn't hit a good shot before. That's okay. Like it's going to be fine. But I think a lot of people try and hide from that. They don't just go out there and just be like, no, like I'm going to get punched in the face. That's why I'm here. Not because I'm going to like avoid it or something like that.
Yeah.
But okay. All right. So we're going through that. We're working with these kids. How long did you do that for? And like, then I know you end up moving back to Canada. So like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I ended up coaching for about 7 years in China, and so I had a really good run. After that, I had the opportunity to actually move to Hong Kong first, and so I was a GM of a sports marketing company. So kind of went to the next level and was doing a little bit more broader events, working in sports marketing. And so we had a great run there for about 3 years. And then I started working for the PGA Tour, actually helping run the PGA Tour China, which is their developmental tour. So this would be similar to PGA Tour Canada, PGA Tour Latin America, PGA Tour China. All of those are feeder tours that go to the Korn Ferry, which then of course goes to PGA Tour. So I had a great chance to, really work on the professional level, working for a year for the PGA Tour, building that PGA Tour China up. Unfortunately, COVID really hammered that tour. That tour is no longer operating anymore because of COVID and the long, layoff with that. But again, it was great to develop there. We had an opportunity with our family to move to Canada, moved there in 2017. And, then I was able to kind of parlay all of my golf experience really into the Vancouver market. Vancouver is very interesting. It is, very large Chinese population. So it was actually great to move from China to Vancouver. And very quickly, I found myself, amongst the Chinese community there, very active in the golf scene, do a lot of consulting, even to this day with academies and businesses in the golf industry in Vancouver. and really helping that market develop. And then I've now moved down to Las Vegas, as of last year, and I've been here about 18 months in Vegas, and it's been been a great move, and still staying active in the golf industry. I mean, I do a lot of other things. I've got my hands in many different businesses, but as you can tell, I think with this interview, golf is always going to be a passion of mine, and seeing the juniors and just actually excited. I'm actually going to be working with Faith Lutheran Academy, or as helping out on their golf team, starting up in March. So again, anytime I can give back to junior golf, that's a huge win for me, and something that I'll continue to do for the rest of my life.
That's awesome. You guys get to be rivals with Dusty over at Gorman.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's really cool. I think I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I think there's a lot of overlap between the things that are kind of like within golf that kind of like spur the like entrepreneurial kind of like journey to some degree. To some degree, you have the loneliness. I think we all experience as business owners, where it's like, am I making the right call? Am I making the right decision? I don't know. Like,
Right.
my family trusts me. Like, am I going to be able to pull this off?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like you're crazy enough to do it and you're smart enough to figure it out. And I think in golf, there's like so many moving variables as well, things you can't control. You just have to like figure out how to manage in the same way that you have in kind of the
Yeah.
entrepreneurial side of things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I think that I mean, because I'm curious to kind of like dig into, like, I know you're doing this stuff with Ghost Golf right now in Las Vegas. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I work as kind of a golf influencer, working with a lot of brands, and so I've kind of cultivated this skill. I have a YouTube channel where I talk about a lot of different things around the world. Because I lived in China for many years, I have a YouTube channel that talks kind of about geopolitics, and so I've been kind of really kind of started this whole new career where I do a lot of public speaking, I do a lot of emceeing, event hosting, and because I have this, I feel very comfortable on camera. A lot of golf brands have reached out to me and said, "Hey, can you, create some content for us? Can you be a brand ambassador? Can you, help us market this and kind of create some marketing campaigns to really drive these products?" So, we're working on that as well. That's another kind of part of the business, is working with a company like Ghost Golf. I'm wearing their hat. They have all of these different, golf bags and towels and, all of the accessories. But yeah, we're just, I think the golf industry is in such an amazing spot right now. COVID was by far the best thing that ever happened to golf. It has just boomed the industry. There's so many cool brands that are coming out, new apparel companies, golf's in a great spot right now. I'm very, very bullish on the future of the game. I think it's never been better. Even despite, like if we're talking the professional level, there's obviously a little bit of rivalry now with the PGA Tour and Live, but I think that that's going to hopefully come to a resolution, some type of merger or some type of working together at some point this year. I'm optimistic about that. But yeah, I'm just, I love the game. I've been very blessed by the game of golf. It's opened so many doors for me around the world, literally taken me to all corners of the globe, and paid so many dividends back to my life. And so I'm just very grateful for that, and just so happy to chat about it and just be a help to juniors out there. So Connor, I know you're doing an amazing job with your juniors there. I've been following your journey. I know that you've honestly helped me out. I mean, talking with stats, because I know that is a really big thing. And so I wanted to thank you as well, because even my game right now is improving a little bit, just taking a look at that data, because I'm much more of a feel person, where
Sure.
I would typically, really before the last 18 months, I didn't really look at a lot of data. But that's really helped me improve my game as well, which has been awesome.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. I've got some even better stuff I want to run by you then,
Sure.
because we're working out. I don't know. Like, I'll touch on the stats here real quick, but I want to get back to like the growth of golf, because I think that's a really cool thing. But anyway, with stats, and I don't know if like you've ever experienced this. I think a lot of people get turned off of this, and I'm a big
Yeah.
stats guy. Obviously, it's like you can look at your strokes gain stuff, and like strokes gain is great. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, for the most part, I find with people, like, even when they do start to track, even elite players that I've talked to and worked with, where they do track their stats, a lot of the times it's like I have some vague concept of it based on what the strokes gain number tells me, but I'm still not really sure what I'm supposed to do in practice and how I can be efficient with that. Has that kind of been your
Yeah.
experience, or is there particular stats that you look at where you're just like, this is profoundly helpful?
Well, I think what for me was really interesting is that my short game has always been very very good, and I'm kind of I'd say what I was looking at my stats is my driving is actually very good, my short game is good, but my approach shots was a huge weakness, and I think was what really just brought me attention is once I started using the what is it, make more circles, draw more
Draw
circles.
more circles.
Yeah, draw more circles. So once I started using that, and it's like, okay, look, your driving is good, your chipping, your short game, and your putting is great, but the huge, where you're losing shots is approach shots. And
Mhm.
I think what it really helped me kind of immediately change my mindset was just realizing just how important it is to make hitting more greens in regulation, as something as simple as that. And
Yep.
a lot of the times what I was realizing is that I was going too aggressively to pins that I shouldn't be, and again, kind of going to my strength, I very rarely three putt. I just can go maybe 3-4 rounds without a three putt. So I mean, if I'm on the green, I'm almost confident. I'm so confident that I'm going to at least get down to two. So when you're looking at that metric, it's like you just really need to focus on hitting more greens. If you can hit more greens, you're gonna score better, and it's just really as simple as that. And guess what? When you have a 6-iron in your hand, there's nowhere else you should be aiming other than the middle of the green, because anywhere on the green from with a 6-iron is a great shot. And
Yep.
so, that was just kind of changing my mindset of, whereas, it's like, okay, it's 185 6-iron. You know what I'm going to try to do? I'm going to try to hit this cut and, try to, land it between this bunker and try to stiff it and try to have a short birdie putt. No, you have a 6-iron in. That's not the time to do that. Cyrus, this green is massive, aim to that middle. And then all of a sudden my mindset's changed, because it's like, instead of trying to hit this ridiculous fade over the bunker, to this small area on the green, now it's like, okay, my target is massive, right? I'm trying to hit this huge green, and I'm kind of, I feel much less pressure now, and hit the center of the green. And again, 35 feet, I'm not trying to make it, and I'm trying to get a par and move on to the next hole, and then we'll ball strike our way. Obviously, once you start getting into that, 15 feet and in, now it's like, okay, these are putts that you can be more. Oh, dang it, Painty. Ah, hey, hey, please don't touch that. All right, you're gonna have to, but please don't touch the camera, buddy. All right. This is called the fatherhead. Hashtag fatherhead. Buddy, don't touch the camera. You can come over here. You can come over
This
here.
wouldn't be a junior golf podcast without the kids in
That's
and
true.
out.
That is true. So so going back, and then for me, it's what I'm really trying. I heard Nick Faldo have a really good, interesting insight one time on podcast. He said, if you're an elite junior or an elite player, a good stat that you should keep is how many approach shots do you hit within 15 feet? Because realistically, that's your scoring up. I mean, sure, you might be able to make a 40-foot bomb every now and then, or you chip in something like that. But when you look at these PGA Tour guys, the guys that go shoot 65, go in their shot link on PGA Tour and then look at like how close they're hitting those approach shots. They'll if they get on a roll, they'll make some long putts, but a lot of time they're ball striking their way. Oh, I've hit it to 8 feet, 9 feet, 12 feet, 15 feet, 8 feet, and then then maybe a couple other like 20, 25 feet. But a lot of the time it's really that metric. Like I've hit a lot of those approach shots really close, and so that's where I'm really started to be. When I'm looking at my golf course now, I have a little bit better of a plan of attack, because I'll know certain holes. It's like, okay, I'm not trying to get a birdie on this hole. I want to get a par, and I'm going to kind of plot my way around the golf course a little bit better. I'm going to hit driver to here. I know I'm going to have a 6-iron in. I'm looking to get a 4 on this hole. Oh, but by the way, the next hole's 380. I can be aggressive here. I can have a wedge in, and with a wedge, I'm going to try to get that within 15 feet and be more aggressive. It's more of a birdie hole for me. So that's kind of how it's changed my mindset. Even at my level, being a PGA Pro, who for many years, I because you're so involved in coaching, I'm kind of just playing for fun, or I'm not even looking at it. And then over the last year, I'm just like, you know what, I should be drawing more circles. I should be analyzing this, better with stats and trying to understand my game more. So it was really
Yeah.
that approach shot for me that was like, that really changed a lot. And as soon as to be honest, like the first time I used the draw more circles, that was so helpful for me. I'm like, wow, that really kind of opened a whole new world for me. And that really just helped me understand my game a lot better, and instantly dropped a couple strokes off my score.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's a good insight there, especially on the greens, specifically
Yeah.
because I always kind of put it like this to kids, where it's like they talk to me about they kind of focus more on the fallow side, just like they want to hit it more close. I'm just like, look, if you hit 13 greens around, it's not just the fact that you're going to make more birdies just by the sheer opportunities you're going to have. It's you're going to make fewer bogeys simply because if you get up and down 70% of the time, that's amazing. If you
Yeah.
30% or if you three putt 30% of the time, that's nobody's like, I talked to 20 handicaps who aren't that bad. So it's just by
Yeah.
the sheer fact that you're on the green, you've gained so much. And if you strategize your way around the golf course, be like, how do I hit as many greens as humanly possible? Maybe you don't always shoot 65, but it's extremely difficult to shoot anything in the 80s. And so
Totally. Totally. Yeah.
I think
It's about
that's
getting that.
absolutely massive.
Yeah. And kind of I wanted to mention one other point that you said earlier about talking about pressure. There's a really good story this week. We're recording this the week of the Amex over there at PGA West, and there's the U.S. amateur champion, Dunlap. He's
Mhm,
tied third, I think. He's shot 64, 65 to open
mhm.
his tournament as an amateur. And, I love what you said about that, is that pressure is felt. And he said a great quote: pressure is a privilege. Pressure is a privilege. And, I mean, he's like, oh, I was nervous the whole time out there, I mean, but so, and one thing that Tiger always said, is if you're nervous, that's good. It means that you care. So, and I think it's really that's such an important part, I think, playing the game, because I mean, even me, like I was playing at the club championship last fall. I was nervous, but it's really, can you go through your routines? Can you go through your process? And, and then all of a sudden you're in the tournament mix, and it's like, this feels great. Like, you want a little bit of pressure. Like, pressure is a privilege, right? If you're in contention and you got a chance to win, you're obviously feeling pressure, right? You're if you're playing a tournament and you have no pressure, that means that you're not in contention, or you're way off the mark. So then you can play carefree. So you want that pressure. Pressure is a privilege.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great place to honestly to cut this too, because like for me, like the day that I decided, I was like, I do not care what I shoot if I'm not under the gun, because it's like, who, like, I go shoot 64, who cares? Like, who
Yeah.
do you do that in front of? Like, what were you playing for? Like, no one
Right.
cares. Like, does it help you shoot better scores in the future? No. And it
Yeah.
did two things. Number one, when I was under pressure, I was like, all right, good. And when I went out there and had a terrible round that was just in practice, I was like, okay, great. Like, I can solve this problem in practice rather than solving it under the gun. And
Yeah.
so it kind of just flipped my whole paradigm, where it was kind of funny. I was, we were playing a lot of the skins games out there, and like my attitude at all, like we talked a bunch of, like, my attitude was not trying to make skins. My attitude was like dump it in the middle of the green every time, and I just happened to do that a lot because
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that's how it works out. But I I played a little bit better in competition than I did in my practice, because I was like, I was willing to work through all the stuff in practice, because that's what it was for. It was so that when I was under the gun, I didn't have those problems.
Right.
And I think that that's just absolutely massive. It's just like, you want that pressure. You want to be in that position. Like, you should be critical of anything you're doing that isn't in that pressure. You should be like, how do I create that pressure for myself so
Absolutely.
that I can be
Absolutely.
ready when it comes down to it. So,
Absolutely.
um,
And you know what? And I think the other thing we said in this podcast was that failure is a good thing, because you're going to get in that pressure situation. If you've never been there, you might hit a bad shot, you might fail, and I mean, we've all been there, and that's how we grow and we get better. So it's that combination that really, that's what helps you make the progress and improve as a golfer.
yeah, absolutely. Well, Cyrus, it's been so much fun to catch up and dig into it together. I'll have to
Absolutely.
do this again at some point if you're able. It's
Absolutely.
been
Always
good
happy
seeing
to.
the boys.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
I
They're
said,
they're
I
having
don't think
they're
this
they're
would be
climbing
a
all over. They're having a good time. But no, I'll look forward to also meeting up again in person, creating some vlogs
yeah.
together. So we'll do some YouTube content, kind of help these juniors out, and it'd be awesome. So Connor, thanks so much, buddy. Really appreciate it. Love what you're doing, and again, I want to thank you for helping my game as well. You've been a big help to me.
Happy to do it, man. It's been
All
awesome.
right, awesome, buddy.
All right. Thanks so much.
You got it. Bye bye.